Good evening, or good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me, Dorothea, and Through an Orthodox Christian Lens. It is August 1st, 2025, here in the evening. I have a little bit of news to share with you. It's pretty important news, as you can imagine, if you've been paying attention to the news lately. I'm going to start with this video, and this is regarding what happened with the earthquake. So we're going to go from there. There's Russian naval bases nearby there. The coast of Russia, the east coast, where the earthquake was close to. Let's see what they have to say. Did earthquake damage key Russian naval bases? Kamchatka hosts bases with Nuke ballistic missile subs. Cream of Russia's naval fleet damaged in mega 8.8 earthquake. A massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake rocked Russia's far eastern Kamchatka on July 30. The epicenter was only around 75 miles away from a cluster of key Russian naval bases. Some of the naval bases also reportedly host Russia's nuclear ballistic missile submarines. Russia's key naval bases damaged? Russian authorities have so far downplayed any impacts from the massive earthquake. Of course they have. However, videos on social media show damages to buildings and other infrastructure. Russian naval bases like Avacha Bay, Rybachi house some of Russia's most elite submarines. The something or other base is the home port for nuclear ballistic missile submarines like Borei A, I don't know how to pronounce that. The Borei A class submarine is the latest SSBN addition to the Russian Navy's Pacific Fleet. Meanwhile, Avacha Bay also houses nuclear-powered subs as well as guided missile subs. Yasin M-class SSGNs, poised as a threat by U.S., was reportedly stationed at Avacha Bay. Avacha Bay is also a key facility for Russian Navy submarine operations in Pacific region. The earthquake hit Kamchatka also hosts multiple missile loading shipyard facilities. While there's no official confirmation yet, damage is highly likely, war zone reported. That's a particular site, news site. While authorities claim the tsunami threat is over, fear of severe aftershocks loom. Well, yes, there's been several of them today and the past few days. Okay. I'm going to go to this article really quickly, get some more information on that. Military experts are trying to go different missile submarines sit at the bay miles from the Russian earthquake epicenter. Military experts are trying to go through satellite images to see which submarines were stationed at the base at the time the earthquake struck. They are worried that the massive quake could have caused destruction to these nuclear submarines, despite what Russia says. The Avacha Bay also houses the most advanced Yasin M and Oscar-class guided missile submarines, SSGNs. Experts think the tremors and the tsunami could have damaged these vehicles if they reached their moorings and flooded them in some way with the water entering the hatches. This could have especially occurred if the submarines were undergoing maintenance work at the bay. However, a retired Russian Navy officer wrote on X that there is no information on critical damage to the Russian Navy's naval bases in Kamchatka. He added that these bases are designed to withstand a nuclear attack, which means they are highly resilient. That's interesting. So they, I guess, are prepared that they think there might be a nuclear attack. That's very interesting. The earthquake in Kamchatka was the strongest one recorded in the world since the 2011 Great Japan earthquake. The resulting tsunami also brought massive destruction, with nearly 20,000 people reported to have been killed. I think they're talking about the one in Japan. So, interesting information on that. So how do we want to take this? Do we think that anything was damaged? I didn't assume that the Russians were going to give any information on that. Most countries' military and their equipment, they stay mums on really they try not to say too much if something is damaged. So I can't really say on that, but I would just think that maybe there was some, but not enough to cause a dysfunctioning of the vehicles, as they were calling it. And then you think, oh, this earthquake, several have been happening in that area, over and over in that particular area right by that Kamchatka and another area right there, peninsula of Russia. I looked that up today, and this is the biggest one, as they said, in years since 2011 with the Japan earthquake. However, hundreds of aftershocks are normal. Usually 3 up magnitude. They were saying, I was reading, it was like 2,100 that happened last year, aftershocks. But this year, well, there's probably going to be more with this one because it's an 8.8, which is pretty huge when you really think about it. And so there's been a lot of aftershocks in the 5s, I've noticed. I've been keeping track through the USGS. And around the same area over and over. And so, and as I said, like a week or so ago, there was a 7 magnitude, 7.4, something like that magnitude in the same area. So a lot of activity was going on there before this came about. We don't know, could the earthquake have been, if there were any, were they helped along through tectonic weapons? This is my own conspiratorial mind going here. Just take it with a grain of salt. But I'm thinking, oh, okay, so perhaps people are saying, a lot of people were wondering if it was real, it was a real earthquake, or if it was egged on by, considering, there's a lot of earthquake in that region with the Pacific Rim and the Ring of Fire, and maybe they were just prodding it, you know what I mean? But because I'm sure they knew, I'm sure the U.S. knows that there is Russian submarines there because they've seen on the satellite, and which is another thing to mention. Is I read somewhere that somebody was saying, oh, we have satellite information, and they had the satellite, and they said that it's showing damage to those submarines. So, I don't know. You all can decide. Or it could have been just the natural earthquakes coming about to release pressure, as somebody was saying who's into geology. It's been a long time. It's been a while for that area, but it's common. But then again, natural disasters spiritually is believed through my faith that it's through our sins and our collective sins and all that we do in the world that causes nature to respond in these certain ways. So it could be you take that whatever you want. If you think it's just a natural thing, and then through our sins or whatever way, it just happens. And especially at this time with the prophecies, they said more earthquakes and volcanoes and all that were going to happen anyway. So that's all in there. But whether there are really tectonic weapons that exist, we don't know. I've read it's very hard to create your own earthquakes, but if there's a plate somewhere, tectonic plates already aggravated and all, that you could enhance that. I don't know. In any case, think whatever you want on that. Like I said, just could be the natural area of the Ring of Fire. That's the one thing I want to discuss with you. The second thing is what's going on with Trump. So, at first, so Trump is having a fit over Medvedev, even though that's how he speaks all the time. I'm talking about Medvedev. This is the way he is. He's a lot more blunt and in your face with his comments. So he said this on July 28th. Trump's playing the ultimate game with Russia. 50 days or 10. He should remember two things. Russia isn't Israel or even Iran. Each new ultimatum is a threat and a step toward war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Don't go down the Sleepy Joe road. And, the one that he said to Lindsey Graham was kind of, the same kind of tone and same kind of language in a way. So you go to Trump's response to this, which is absolutely outrageous. Based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is now the deputy chairman of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions. That is absolutely insane, I might say. I need to say right away. Just in case these foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that. But that's how you speak all the time, Trump. Especially recently. Some of the god-awful things you've been saying. Words are very important. Oh, yes, they are, but you don't seem to have a problem with that, and can often lead to unintended consequences. Are you telling yourself this? You should. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and there's a video on that, but let me see. There's a little quick news alert thing on this. I'll play really quickly. Russia and U.S. admitted Ukraine war. U.S. President Donald Trump sends nuclear submarines near Russia in big escalation. Yeah, stupidity is what it is. And dangerous. Trump's nuclear move just hours after ex-Russian president issued a nuke threat. Well, it was not really a nuke threat. Medvedev is a top ally of President Putin and deputy chairman of Russian Security Council. And of course it goes over then, appropriate regions. Really appropriate regions, which would mean probably near Russia. Of course, Alaska's very close, so. And so, it's going over what I just read from his Truth Social post. Words are very important. Yes, Donald, they are. Okay, so yesterday, former Russian President Dmitry took to social media to warn Trump. He warned Trump not to mock nations after attack on Russia, India economies. As for the talk about the dead economies of India and Russia and entering dangerous territory, maybe he should recall his favorite movies about The Walking Dead and also remember how dangerous so-called dead hand, which doesn't even exist, could be. That's what he thinks was a threat, Trump thought. He referenced the legendary Cold War nuclear system known as the dead hand. The Dead Hand is an automated system that can launch nukes if leaders die. Okay, so we're going to go on because I'm going to play a little video of Scott Ritter explaining all this. So, I'm going to play that for you right now.
What did the president do today? Well, what the president did today is deploy two of the most lethal strategic nuclear assets in the American arsenal, or at least he claims to deploy it. I think we will touch upon this later. Ohio-class submarine launched ballistic missile capable submarines armed with Trident nuclear or solid fuel missiles, each one tipped with multiple thermonuclear warheads. He has said that he has ordered them deployed into the appropriate areas, in response to a Russian tweet from Dmitry Medvedev. This means areas where the submarine's missiles can target Russia. This is extraordinarily dangerous. The United States maintains a permanent force of Ohio-class submarines on station, two submarines at least in each of the oceans, two in the Atlantic, two in the Pacific. They're on station where their missiles could reach any of the potential nuclear threats to the United States of America. On occasion, we deploy additional Ohio-class submarines. For instance, just recently, an Ohio-class submarine was deployed into the Indian Ocean close to Iran, where its Trident missiles armed with W-76-2 low-yield nuclear weapons could be used against Iran if the president so ordered. But we have 4 nuclear-armed submarines. So when he said he's ordered 2 deployed, is he talking about 2 additional submarines to this? Or is he talking about redeploying 2 submarines out of their existing stations into new deployment areas that make them even more of a threat to Russia? See, the tweet he's responding to is one from Dmitry Medvedev, in which Medvedev sort of mocked the president as
Medvedev is the former president of Russia, who's the number 2 person on their National Security Council,
right,
who in recent years has been more publicly bellicose than President Putin.
He's like the bad cop to Putin's good cop.
Right. And what did he do? Pick a social media fight with Trump, and Trump took the bait?
Mean tweets. This is literally mean tweets. This is about Donald Trump threatening to end the world as we know it because of a mean tweet. But what's even more outrageous is that Donald Trump doesn't understand what Medvedev tweeted. Medvedev was telling Trump to knock it off with the dangerous threats, saying that, if you do this, America can end up looking like the Walking Dead because of the dead hand. The dead hand is a reference to the perimeter system, which is a defensive system put in place by the Soviet Union back in the 1980s, so that if they are ever struck preemptively by the United States, a first strike, by the way, the tactic to be used in a first strike is to bring Ohio-class submarines close to Russia's shores, fire off their Trident missiles on a flattened trajectory to avoid detection so you can strike the targets quicker, which is what Trump just actually appeared to order the U.S. Navy to do. So the dead hand now becomes a factor, because if Trump is dumb enough to launch an attack against Russia, the dead hand, the perimeter system, will ensure that all of Russia's strategic nuclear forces will be fired against the United States, even if Trump takes out Putin, the National Command Authority, etc. I know this is a fact. When I was a weapons inspector in Votkinsk, there was a missile crisis in March of 1990 because the Russians were trying to get 3 missiles out of the factory without us turning on the cargo scan X-ray system. Why? These weren't 3 SS-25 missiles. They don't care if we see those. These were 3 of what they call Sirena. These were modified SS-25s, not to carry nuclear warheads, but to carry the radio equipment that's used to broadcast the codes. They needed to get these missiles out and deployed and ready so that the perimeter system was alive and well and living. The dead hand is only defensive in nature. Trump should feel no threat from this unless he's planning on attacking Russia. This is the insanity. This president doesn't even know what he's doing. And he's responding to a mean tweet from a guy who's been mean tweeting for years now. I mean, I think most people, view Dmitry Medvedev's tweets with sort of, humor. Yeah, they hurt sometimes. He's very good at what he does. But he's not the president of Russia. He doesn't command Russia's military, nuclear forces. He doesn't direct the Russian economy. He advises Vladimir Putin, but he is not Vladimir Putin. So to treat Medvedev as if his tweets actually will translate into action is, childish behavior, but in this case, dangerously childish, because he's literally putting 2 U.S. nuclear submarines on a combat patrol against Russia.
Let's read.
Yeah, it is totally nuts. And, it's like 2 high school guys trying to one-up each other. Well, I'll get you. I'll do this. You can't beat that. Well, okay. I'll scare you with my words here on X. And then Trump's, well, how dare you? I'll one up you by putting my nuke stubs out there. Anything that's, Trump is so offended by every little thing, and Medvedev got under his skin because Medvedev, he just does this. He doesn't have a complex like Trump where it's his ego that's doing all this. He just does that to jab people and spar a little bit, and it'll kind of just put out a jab, and take a jab at somebody. But it's not really. Nobody takes anything he says seriously to that point of doing anything over the edge. But with Trump, the man, oh, how dare you. And you'll see this every time he puts out a message. So, they're saying this about the Republicans and me. I just read that today. Me in caps, because it's all about him. The world revolves around him. And, my friends have been saying this for years about Trump. And I was like, yeah, he is that way. He's into himself and self-absorbed. I got that. But then it just seems to be 10 times, on up from when he was talking before. And it just could have been that I just ignored him because I wasn't really paying attention back then. But in any case, yeah, he's crazy, and the way he's speaking, he says really outrageous and cruel stuff, which it's funny because he's complaining over Medvedev, but he is worse, way worse, and so. A few of the analysts think that he's in the early stages of Alzheimer's, and who knows? It could be because, I've heard stories of people who become mean and angry and cruel at certain times of the day when they were going through Alzheimer's. It's like a certain time during the day. Oh, you better watch out. They're going to be really snappy and grumpy and not nice. So in any case. Because it's in his family, it's likely for sure, and not just one family member, but many, as I've said in another video that people were talking about. Now, with that information, I'm going to go back to the whole nuke thing, because I've had one person again asked me that the other day under one of my videos, are nuclear weapons going to be used? And I said it depended on the elder or the saint. For instance, I'm going to give you an example of that. So this is during the more escalatory portion of the World War. We're not quite in that yet, so this would be later on. So I'm going to give you the one about what Elder Joseph said again. So there will be the first attempt to use nuclear weapons by the U.S. and Israel, which would make a lot of sense considering that who's the country that has actually used nuclear weapons. It was the U.S. on Japan, 2 atomic bombs, which was terrible. but the Russians will neutralize them, causing a global blackout of energy and communications, which I talked about the EMP yesterday on those tech advanced weapons video that I showed you, which, so the EMP. Okay, so that will happen. According to him, that's going to stop any nukes from being used. Now, if you listen to Metropolitan Neophytos, he said this in 2016. Okay, so March 24th, 2016. He says a Muslim. He's telling a story that he got from a very reliable person. Okay, so it says a Muslim guy escaped Syria, which is his country of origin. He left his wife, his kids there, and came to Cyprus to work. He found a job. He found a job next to a guy from Nemesis. As long as he worked as a slave, the guy from Nemesis accepted his work. I see. Once he told him, "Boss, give me some more money. Help me get my papers." He was residing illegally in Cyprus. The guy from Nemesis sent him to the police. In short, a good Orthodox Christian Cypriot priest sheltered him in a village of Cyprus. Interesting. This guy, while being a Muslim, started to get to know Orthodox Christianity. Through the priest and the villagers that were sheltering him. He came close to orthodoxy. He did not say to the priest, "I want to be a Christian." However, he told the good priest, you pray to Christ, I pray to Allah. Tell me someone we have in common and I can pray to make a contact. He told him, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. The man started praying to Abuna Abraham. That's Father Abraham, as he named him. He begged him for his wife, his children to leave Syria. Abuna Abraham appeared to him. Tall, with a beard, with a stick, as he described him. So, actual Abraham from the Bible. He says to him, "My child, I will help you meet your family. You will face some adversities, but I will take care of it." As he was talking to him and reassuring him, he, the Muslim guy, saw behind Abuna Ibrahim a yellow sea. He asked him, "Abuna, what is this sea?" He says, Father Abraham says, "This sea is Syria and Iraq, when they will throw the nuclear weapons." In that area, apparently. So that's one story that's talking about nuclear weapons that are going to happen at some point. And I don't think this specifies here whether that means what's going on in Syria and all that, or if it's later on, but he definitely has a story about that. So, interesting to know. There's another issue of the Israelis are moving further and further into Syria. I read an article on that today. That is only about 20 miles outside of Damascus. Haven't heard the Turkish response yet. So, we'll see. Because, the conflict between Turkey and Israel is supposed to happen next or at some point here. And then, as I always said, also I want to reiterate that that woman's testimony, I can't say that I totally believe that is true. Meaning, as I said in my video a couple times before, that a couple videos before, that her saying that this man was came up to her and was talking to her, and he told her all these things, that she thought he was not a human and that he was an angel. Well, look, demons can form into angels, as I've read to you through Saint Joseph the Hesychast, his the stories that I shared with you that have happened to his disciple, Father John, and he himself, that had to deal with a lot of demons. And as we know, demons are just fallen angels. Okay, so they tend to, obviously they deceive. So the fact that he said, you and your family are going to be in heaven, when they would not say that. Somebody posted on my under that video a very good point, that angels come for a specific reason, and it's not just to chat. And she's right, or he's right, I forget. And so that's an issue that I had from the beginning, because until you're not saved until you endure to the end, and that's what Christ says. And people have to live their life daily, falling down, getting up, and continuing, making the effort and enduring. And so one doesn't know what they're going to do, what's going to happen, where they're going to be 10 years from now, or whatever. So that was the one thing that really stuck with me when I watched that. You can go back and see that video. It's the one with the vital update on World War III prophecies. It's towards the end. But in any case, there was that issue. There was the issue with the little devils, which to me are the Veds. Some people were saying digital ID, but I don't think that's what it is. I've heard it too many times from the elders being called that. And also, the person that made those comments that were very helpful also said that the Great War he or she, I forget, had said was like, it would be 3 years, which would make perfect sense, because there are a lot of things that come in threes. It's a biblical number that's really important, like the Trinity. So that makes a lot of sense. So I wouldn't put too much stock into that woman's testimony, personally. That's just my opinion. Anyway, the nuclear issue, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you. Please share your thoughts below, whatever you think on this. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I know that Alaska, HARP is there and all that, and they do all these testing and stuff like that there with their weapons and things. And then Alaska is so close to Russia. So, keeping an eye out, seeing what's going on with the earthquakes and everything like that. But there's so many things going on at the same time that it's just good to keep up with that. Anyway, that's all I wanted to tell you this evening. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for following my channel and all that you do to support me in your comments and your likes and all that. I hope you have a blessed evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you are when you see this. All right, until next time.